Well, it is time. It's a Friday night. Nick, we never do this at Friday night, but cookies. Oh, wow. Going to be a great show. Friday night, Eat the Chalk podcast brought to you by the DFS headquarters as we get set to break down week 15 of the NFL DFS slate. This will be the Sunday slate. He is at Nick from CWE. I am HQ Golf Guy. He is Nick. I am Brian. And I'll tell you what, again, till the end of the year, if you hit dfsheadquarters.com or DM us at DFS headquarters on Twitter, we will get you a pretty good deal for the rest of this month and all of next month. It's like less than $7. You can't beat it. It's a fantastic deal. Get all of Nick's insight on the NFL. We got the NBA coming up. The last week of MMA. So if you get in tonight, UFC's card tomorrow night will be part of that package. And then all the cool stuff that's happening right now in the world of DFS. Nick, week 15 is upon us. Some injuries to take a look at, some Saturday games to take a look at, or not take a look at because they won't be on the slate. I don't know. What are your thoughts here as we've hit week 15 in kind of how the DFS season has gone as you eat some Christmas cookies?
All right, now stick with me here, okay?
Okay.
What if we do an Eat the Cookie podcast?
I'm down.
And it'll be a part of the Hallmark movie marathon, whatever.
I have really slacked off. I watched Home Alone again for like the 14th time with my niece. She's 5, loves it. Got her the Funko Pops of Marv and Harry.
Nice.
A little bit early. She was excited, started playing with those, but she loves that show. Loves that movie. So we started watching that. I haven't hit the Hallmark ones this week, but that's going to be tomorrow. No Michigan football. Up until about 4:30 when the NFL slate starts. I think it's going to be a morning and early afternoon full of nothing but Hallmark Christmas movies, of course, led by my girl Lacey.
Yeah, I think honestly everybody's like behind this year. It's really crazy. Like we've all been sentenced to our houses, and yet somehow everybody I've talked to is either like it doesn't feel as much like Christmas. We haven't done as much like Christmas movie wise. So I don't know what it is, and I'm guilty with that as well. We've watched probably like 5 of the 50 Christmas movies we have, plus the plethora that you find made for TV. So
the DVR. My DVR is getting full. I've got to start at some point getting through some of these.
Yeah, I hear you. But as far as the DFS season goes, I think for me, this has been it's definitely been a big step ahead season in terms of how I process information, how I play. And I think like the best spot to really talk about from last week that kind of emblemizes all of that is Brandon Ayuk. Now on this podcast last week, we were just like, this is the easiest play. This is the biggest no-brainer play when every fucking other person is running and saying, you want to play Jets receivers against the Seahawks in a team that's just fucking terrible, just a god-awful terrible, and a Seattle defense that, like, if you've watched, has progressively been getting better after they've made some trade acquisitions. It's like, I get it. Seattle was terrible. We went after them the first 8 weeks of the season, and you're unable to break away from that. And I know that was a weakness in my DFS game too. You like find things that work, and you just fucking sit there, and it can become a brick wall, and you just keep doing this. You just keep running into it as hard as you can because you think it's going to break, and it doesn't. So for me, I looked at the slate, and I said, there is a ton of frailty. A word I will use probably 8,000 times today, and I did yesterday on the podcast. Like, those were such fragile plays. Like, oh, you're shocked that Brashad Perriman, who has done Jack Dick all year, didn't do Jack Dick again? Meanwhile, hey, look, I built a cash game lineup, started with Pat Mahomes. Mahomes could have scored 40 fucking points if he just if McCole Hardman didn't fumble that ball as he was running it down, if that last interception, like, it could have been an entirely different game. But he wasn't bad in the scape of quarterbacks. Like, it was him, and then he was probably second or third highest scoring, and then fucking Aaron Rodgers, because he got a rushing touchdown, and that was the difference. I pivoted off a Hill to Kelsey because I sat here and said, boy, there's a lot of real like cheap dick tight ends who I just have a feeling are going to not give me what I need. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to play Kelsey. Kelsey has a 30-point game. I have to sacrifice Derrick Henry, but I end up landing on both Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel. in my cash game because I'm like, look, Carolina's going to throw the ball. They had bad touchdown luck, but they got like 16 and 18 points each at their price. Fair plays to good plays. And then Ayuk, we're talking about him on the podcast, and we're just like, here's a guy who's literally getting Tyreek Hill and Devonta Adams' workload. He is not getting the stats because, you know, he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball, but nonetheless, he's 5,600, 5,400, and like, why aren't people talking about him? Why aren't people playing him? And even within, you know, I even said it in our room, like, this guy was the easiest play of the week, you know, so like, don't trip over your own dick sometimes trying to, and we have multiple players this week when I saw like people who could be chalk, and we'll see, because it is always a we'll see, but I'm just like, this is the same story all over again. It's just this guy who's not good is just going to be played because he's X price, and you know, he'll open your whole lineup up. Well, God, and last little bit of a rant. I can't stand hearing people who provide paid content saying things like, well, even if he only gets 6, he doesn't kill you. In what world do you produce lineups in a sport where scoring points matters? How is a guy not scoring points going to not hurt your lineup? Even if you and I play head-to-head and I play a guy who's cheap and he does poorly, that basically says one of the 9 spots I have is just fucking gone. Right? That's it. You basically have cut yourself off at the ankles and are now hoping that everything else has to go right, because if another one of my guys happens to miss, now you've cut yourself off at the knees and so on and so forth. So I think for me, it's definitely just more of a like, you know, like here, I'm going to break down DFS for like everybody, dude. Like this is going to be the most mind-blowing fantasy advice that anybody has ever given. And like, everybody should just give us all your money. Ready? You ready for this?
I think I know what's coming.
Play good players. I mean, it's as simple as that. We're sitting here and people are talking about Leonard Fournette. People are talking about Chad Hansen. People are talking about all these guys. And I hate to break it to you, like, yes, Chad Hansen had 2 good games in a row. Otherwise, I'm 95% sure I saw him drop off my groceries 2 Wednesdays ago. Okay, like, so let's not
major league line off a guy who'll be bagging groceries in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but like, so I think that's something, you know, we really have to put into perspective so much. And another thing Snoop brought up, I've literally played the New York Jets in cash every week this year. They're 2,100. There's no more absolutely like fragile position than the defense.
The Cowboys were 400 last week, so I was just all over that at 2,400. And it ended
so whatever, anything under 25, it's like, what you know, people are like, hey, I played this 3,700 defense. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so you willingly gave up like $1,500 in salary that you could actually count on other people. So what are you hoping for? Like, well, my defense isn't going to give up any points. Well, no, that's not how football works. I hate to break it to you. So, I mean, these are things that, like, on a whole, how you have to put into your process to really win in daily fantasy. Like, don't outthink yourself and don't just listen to what other people say. Like, research it, make sure it works and it's like valid. And anyway, let's get started with our first look. Hey, here's an interesting thing about the first look that we're going to do this week, Brian.
We're far enough along. Right?
All right, so maybe embarrassingly, we're far enough along, but this is also the first time I'm looking at this. So it's going to be very interesting today.
I will say, though, last week I said I'm going to lay down the law. I played about 80 lineups, and about 75 of those 80 lineups were Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey, or Rodgers, Adams, and Tanyan. And guess what? I made money.
Oh, it's amazing how that works.
Mixing with, I mean, it's kind of obvious at this point. But let's get to it. Week 15, Tampa Bay, Atlanta is the first game we want to take a look at. And I'll tell you what, I'm absolutely in love with Tom Brady this week for cash, for GPP, whatever. I want him in my lineups. But that goes against what I've said about Mahomes and Rodgers. It's fine. I think Brady's an exception this week. Brady's going to be at 66, Fournette at 45. We'll find out what you think about that as we expect Jones to not play. I believe that's kind of official at this point. Godwin at 62, Evans at 65, Brown at 54, Gronkowski at 42. And on the flip side, though, at the Dome, we've got Matt Ryan at 54, Ito Smith at 4,000, Gurley at 47. No one's going there. Jones is out. Ridley at 8,200, Gage at 47, Powell at 3. And then Hurst, who's just been a disaster. I had a lineup last week, a Rodgers Adams Tanyan line that had Hunter Hurst in it. Scored 200 points, and Hurst does nothing. So I can't imagine the amount of money that I lost just on the basis of the fact that Hurst sucks. But I'm a big Brady guy this week. What do you think, Nick?
So this is another thing you do. Like, this is not you specifically, but if you want to be good at DFS, it's not – okay, so here's why I believe Leonard Fournette could end up being bad chalk. Number one, I don't think he's very good. I think if you – what's that?
I agree.
I think if you look at it, number one, like outside of the first game he really played where he had like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, he has like 1 yard run over 10 yards. Like outside of that.
Drops a bunch of those screen passes.
Might really not even be that active. Oh, hold on, Brian. This just coming in. He's bad enough that they didn't even fucking play him last week. They were just like, you're healthy and active. We don't even need you. But yet everybody's going to run out here, be like, well, 4,500. Don't you know? Like he's 4,500, and it's going to be like you put him in your lineup, and even though he's not good, but like he's 4,500, and you put him in your lineup, he's going to score all the points. But the reality of the situation is just like you said, like, okay, this human piece of or this. I don't want to call him human trash because I don't know him as a person, but like he's not a high level football player anymore. I think we can agree on that. Like stacked boxes is why Leonard Fournette can't do anything except like stacked boxes don't have anything to do when you just like drop balls when they're past you, when your yards per, your yards after first touch are in the negative probably. Like these are all bad things.
And the offensive tackle, their starting offensive tackle is also out. As well.
Not to mention the fact, Brian, that the Falcons have been good all year, or at least average to good at defending the run, right? Mm-hmm. Just bottom line. They've been like bottom 5 in defending the pass. So why do you look at Leonard Fournette and say, that's the thing I want? That's what I'm going to put all my money into, when in all likelihood, Tom Brady's going to go out and go for 325 and 3 to 4 touchdowns. Like that is the more realistic. So it's not even, I don't even think it's not even a GPP pivot, Brian. It's a common fucking sense pivot that Leonard Fournette's not good. So when everyone else is playing Leonard Fournette, either do one of two things. Just don't play Leonard Fournette and don't play any Bucks, or say, no, I think the Bucks are going to score points because the Falcons defense is literally absolute trash, at least against the pass, and just invest in Tom Brady. And look, Tom Brady has been either invisible or he's been setting the world on fire. And you're not paying those top tier prices, right? Like Brady's 6.6. My opinion, that's cash range. Based on how I've built my lineup so far, like I don't think I'm getting there to Brady. I think I need someone, unfortunately, like a little bit cheaper this week. Mm-hmm. But to me, you go there. And it probably is like a naked Brady week, because who can catch touchdown passes? Gronk, Cameron Brate, Scotty Miller, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans. Like I'm not wild. And so what I'll end up doing, in all honesty, is I'm going to condense my quarterback pool this week, and I'm going to go heavy on Tom Brady, and I'm just going to make sure I'm mixing and matching like enough of these receivers together so I have like one Evans, one Gronk, one Evans, one Godwin, one Evans, one Goodwin, and just so on and so forth. So I have all the permutations of that. And then, I mean, first of all, Matt Ryan sucks. Like, I don't think anybody's questioning that at this point. There might not be any worse second half of the year quarterback in the NFL than Matt Ryan. He is just fucking terrible. You're not using running backs from Atlanta. So, and to your point, Hayden Hurst absolute abject disaster this year. Just absolutely terrible. So what does that leave you with?
Ridley still seems to get it done.
Who?
Ridley. He's still.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Ridley and Gage at 4,700. Okay, Russell Gage is 110% cash viable in
possibly
this spot.
A better passer than Ryan as well.
No question. 100% better passer than Matt Ryan. But like he's totally viable. I mean, I think you definitely have to stick Ridley in the tournament only pile because at his salary, even though Henry and Cook are more expensive, those are the only guys you can really compare him to. And I'm sorry, you're not going to make a compelling case for me to play Calvin Ridley over either of those two guys. In cash.
Is there a case for Hurst knowing how bad Tampa has been? I think the top 6 team or a bottom 6 team in defending the tight end. Is there any love for Hurst, or is that over?
I'm not a big guy when it comes to like this shitty team is playing this team that's good at or bad at defending a position because it all comes down to what a team is going to do. I don't have the faith that they're going to effort to get the ball to Hayden Hurst. So like, I don't know. Yeah. 3-4, he's had some games with some spiked targets and honestly, pretty much all of this piss poor, like, all these piss poor results have come with like poor play from Matt Ryan. So there's an obvious like, I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that means you pair Hurst with Ryan. Like it's not that type of mutual exclusivity. It's more like if you think Ryan's going to have a good game, then Hurst is more viable. But man, it's just hard to trust Matt Ryan. And so outside of like Gage and Ridley, I just find it really hard to want to trust Hurst.
What was going to be an interesting game out there in D.C. this week when the Seahawks head to Washington. I think it's lost a little bit of its luster with Alex Smith being out for the game and Antonio Gibson also likely not to play for the Redskins or the Washington football team. My apologies. Rain also in the forecast could damper a few things as well. I want to get your thoughts on this. We've got Dwayne Haskins at 5,000 for Washington. But J.D. McKissick is the guy I want to ask you about at 5,700 or Peyton Barber at 44. Or do we avoid that situation? A lot of people see on McKissick this week. McLaurin is the guy I really like because Haskins at least has the ability to throw the ball down the field and tends to look for McLaurin more than say Alex Smith did. When Alex Smith was more of a Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick kind of guy. Sims at 33, Steven Sims at 31. Logan Thomas is all the way up to 4,000 at this point. Then on the flip side, you've got Russell Wilson at 73, Chris Carson at 68, Metcalf at 86, Lockett at 67. More in swing. I think you've got to mention these guys at least as some cheap opportunities for touchdowns at 34 and 3,000 apiece. And then Disley at 29. Again, I want to go back to that Redskins backfield. Unplayable in DFS, McKissick and Barber, just due to the fact that,
this game is a cross-off for me completely and totally. Here's why. First of all, you have Seattle traveling across country. They've already done this once this year against Buffalo and just like it was not good. Washington legitimately has one of the better defenses in the NFL. It's not even like up for discussion at this point anymore. Washington defense, especially in the front. So I expect a lot of Russell Wilson on his back. I expect a lot of like short possessions. I expect them to struggle trying to run the ball. I expect them to try to throw the ball and not really have success there. So I'm not really that wild. I think this is a real trap spot after we saw like Russell Wilson. They didn't get there fantasy wise necessarily. Everything was spread out too much. Russ got sat basically the entire fourth quarter. So yeah, you're not getting like just hold on. I have to see like 7,300. That's not like a massive discount. Chris Carson, like Washington's run defense has been super, super, super good. And I think truthfully, Chris Carson probably would be more playable to me just because he could see some of those dump offs that could be the things that give the Washington defense a little bit of trouble.
I imagine that front seven, and especially when you're talking about Chase Young and even to an extent, Carrying on the flip side, when you're seeing the kind of pass rush these guys are getting, that's the kind of line that's going to give Russell Wilson some problems.
Oh, that's what I mean. So like, I'm not, I'm not playing. I don't think guys like Moore and Swain are ever in play for anything more than like showdown slates.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Metcalf and Lockett are too expensive. I'm not touching like the tight ends. And then on the Washington side of the ball, here's the problem with Terry McLaurin is he's going to be chalky. Like he's not going to be cash game chalky, but he's the first as soon as Alex Smith went down, I was like, holy shit, this is great for McLaurin. But when I said that in my head, every other person who knows football said the same thing because they know that all of McLaurin's production effectively came with Dwayne Haskins because he's not afraid to push the ball downfield. It isn't the craziest thing to assume that we see this team play from a little bit of ahead, right? They just did against the Niners, and I do think Seattle is definitely a better team than the Niners, but that defense is good enough to be able to give Washington, the football team, some opportunities to put points on the board. I'm just not sure because I also believe Seattle's defense is good enough. A $5,700 J.D. McKissick. Color me baffled as to why people are interested in this. I don't think that you really saw that same like reliance on those like running backs when Haskins is in the game. So it feels like it's an entirely different situation. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I just don't, I feel like this is a game where like 10 people catch balls for Washington and like they're going to score, but it's going to be some guy that finishes with like 2 for 20 and a touchdown. And even at like 3.4K isn't going to be good enough because it's going to be Cam Sims or Steven Sims or Dontrell Inman or Isaiah Wright. So I don't know.
Logan Thomas is the guy, though, that I believe his targets are relatively still high enough with Haskins, around 8, 7, 9, around that area. He's been getting good targets with Haskins.
Yeah, I think he's fine. Like it's just I'm not
4,000's a lot when you've been paying 3,300.
It sadly is. Every dollar counts, and especially like toward the end of the season, they count even more because all of your guys are like fully priced up at this point. You know, you're not getting the discounts on players that you were like $6,900 Derrick Henry a few weeks ago, Alvin Kamara under 7K. Like these guys are all fully priced. So yeah, I think this is an interesting spot really for both defenses. It wouldn't shock me if one of these defenses ended up being optimal. I don't think the offensive line for Washington has been super great. I think they lost someone in the game last week. And I don't know. I just like when I saw this, I was like, hey, this is a spot where people might try to play stuff and it's not going to work. So I'm just going to stay away from it.
The Chicago Bears head to Minnesota for a 1 o'clock kickoff in Mini. A lot of people I'm reading seem to think this could be a high-scoring game, which it very well could be. But a lot of people are on the Mitch Trubisky bandwagon, and how easy 1 week can make you forget all the terribleness that has happened in years past. Trubisky at 55, Montgomery at 7. All of a sudden, he's kind of established himself. There's so many people. Oh, he runs like he's stuck in mud, and then all of a sudden, it's a completely different story. It's amazing what happens when you give guys time to get acclimated to the league. Ball State's beating Buffalo by 10 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, college football, man. What a shit show it's been tonight.
Allen Robinson at 74, Mooney at 39, Miller at 34, Cole Kmet at 3, Graham questionable at 31. On the flip side, you've got Cousins at 61, Cook at 9,000, Thielen at 71, Jefferson 73, and Irv Smith at 36 with Kyle Rudolph out. So Irv Smith is a guy I look at and go, 3,600. He's mostly healthy. Rudolph out. Yeah, I could get behind that.
Yeah, interestingly enough, like before I went to Kelsey last week, Smith was my tight end. And it was because he was 3,100 and he let me get Derrick Henry in. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I think the swap was Henry, Smith, and Perryman for Montgomery, Kelsey, and Anderson, something like that. So it ended up being like a relatively even swap. It didn't really help me. It didn't really hurt me. But I do. I'm of the opinion. I'm kind of on the Mitch Trubisky bandwagon. If you look at him from a fantasy perspective, he's really not a bad fantasy player. I think the single most dangerous player for me this week in fantasy, and after playing him very heavily the last 3 weeks, I'm going to have 0 David Montgomery shares.
After 7,000, it's getting a little out of hand.
It's not even it's getting out of hand. It's he breaks off like an 80-yard touchdown 3 games in a row and then has basically no production after that. Right? So like
effect.
Yeah, it's if you're not getting that, then more realistically, he's probably getting you honestly 8 to 10 less fantasy points, and at $7K, I'm not super happy with 15 to 18 when I think we could get it cheaper. So I have toyed around with a lot of things right now because I'm a sadist, or maybe a sadomasochist. I think that Trubisky is looking like he's going to be my cash game quarterback, just because I really honestly can't wiggle around enough to get up to Brady.
I just say this because when you say play your best players in the situation that Brady's in, we were using Aaron Rodgers last week, and we were using Mahomes at 81 last week, and it fit. And I know it's a different week, but boy, 6,600 for Brady. I'm having a hard time passing him up on my cash game. I'm just having a hard time.
I'm not saying that's not wrong. And to be honest with you, Brady's going to be my main tournament lineup quarterback. No questions about it. I'm probably going to single stack Brady to Mike Evans because that's the highest probability of touchdown equity. And if it happens to be 2 and he gets over 100 yards, then you have your stack where that's how it comes together. Bring it back with Gage. You got a nice little affordable stack where if Gage gets to 15, Evans gets to 25, and Brady gets to 25, you're sitting pretty good. But I really think that Trubisky in this matchup, this Minnesota defense isn't good. Playmakers are starting to come alive in Chicago. I really think that this passing attack the next 2 weeks are going to win people championships. You have Mooney kind of breaking out, Miller getting more involved, Kmet, who at this point honestly would be my cash game tight end, seeing 7 targets back-to-back weeks. The game script still probably calls for Trubisky to have to throw to get there. And you have if you really wanted to, you have super smooth bringbacks where you could drop Dalvin Cook in. Chicago stifled him to 16 fantasy points earlier this year. I think after a few meh weeks, this is a really prime breakout spot for Dalvin Cook. Not going to hate on Irv Smith, not going to hate on Jefferson.
It'll be a week where there's not a lot of people playing Dalvin Cook either.
No, there won't be. And I mean, I've toyed around with a couple of different builds. As I said, I'm not playing junk running backs. So all of my builds have been some combination of Henry, Cook, Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Kenyon Drake. I've kind of just been circling those 5 guys into 3 slots and just trying to figure out which combination with, cheap defense, a cheap tight end, and the receivers I like how it comes together. So Cook's definitely a guy I may end up, with in cash. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of playing him because you play him and Henry together and you have 2 running backs who legitimately have 35-point or higher upside. And they cost a lot, but still you can still play good plays and get those guys in there. So that's kind of my take on this. I really do like this.
So could you possibly see yourself doing a Trubisky, Robinson, Kmet, and then flip Cook?
Yeah, you definitely can. And it's not horribly I'm not doing that in cash obviously, but
stacking obviously for
you could certainly do that, and and it makes a lot of sense because in that lineup I would say you just play the fade Henry game, maybe come back and instead of playing, because one thing I did last week and it worked out really well, except for the lineups that had Corey Davis in it, was I said, okay, I want one Titan in every lineup, right? Like at least one. And any lineup with Tannehill, I want to have two. So put me in a position where, I had a ton of shares of Derrick Henry. I had like 50% Derrick Henry. I had like 35% Davis, 35% AJ Brown. So really only 35% of my lineups like fell on their face, but I had 65% of my lineups. Some of them had Henry and Brown. Some of them just had Henry. Some of them had Brown, but like I was set up really well where I had a lot of, and so like, I think that's what I would do this week would be like, if I'm not playing Henry in a lineup, play one of Brown or Davis. And this seems like a great spot where you could just drop in Davis as kind of like that equity on Tennessee, because I think they're still in another good spot this week.
A very interesting matchup fantasy-wise, because the game was just a couple of weeks ago when Indianapolis went to Houston. Now Houston will be making their return trip to Indy. A 1 o'clock kickoff. The Houston Texans and a miserable offense, but they're not. I don't know. They were miserable last week, but they've had some games where they put up some big numbers as well. And with Deshaun Watson, you're always going to have a chance to do that. Watson comes in at 68. David Johnson at 51. Duke's at 5. Brandon Cooks, I believe he's going to play, is at 6,000. Kuti is at 53. And once again, and I apologize, Nick, I don't have Hanson's price right in front of me.
It's 42.
Okay. Jordan Akins. Oh, my God. He's 2,800, which is 2,800 too much for Jordan Akins. But on the flip side, I mean, how good has the offense been with Philip Rivers at 59, Taylor at 72? Hilton's been, fantastic the past couple of weeks at 55, and Pittman at 48. I don't know. What are you doing with this game? Are you skipping this game completely? Are you going is it all Indy? Or do you think that Houston can keep it the pace and kind of score with the Colts here?
Yeah, this is really interesting because, in the games without, Will Fuller, he has not – Deshaun Watson just hasn't – it's not been as good of a situation.
Sure. Well, it doesn't help when you've got Jordan Akins dropping every end zone pass that he's just standing there wide open.
He literally ran a corner. I don't even think he ran a corner out. I think he walked to the corner of the end zone, stood there, went like this, and then when the ball came to him, it hit him on his shoulder. Like he didn't even realize what was happening. This is
in his eyes.
3 games in a row where Akins has dropped passes in the end zone. But this is an interesting situation because you look at that and you say, at least they're fucking throwing to him in the end zone. So, like, I understand the results haven't been there, but all you need is this to be the time where he actually accidentally catches it. And, you're set. So at 2,800, like, I don't hate the play at all. He's out there. This is a scary situation. If
it's 10:43 and we're both like so tired.
And I've been sleeping in until like 10 o'clock every day. It's been really good.
USC's getting pounded by Oregon right now. Holy smokes.
USC is legitimate. And they have like 3 NFL caliber wide receivers.
And Oregon taking them to the woodshed.
And it's just not even pretty. Like Slovis it continuously looks awful. But anyway, I don't know. Like QT has great history against Indianapolis. Like every game he's had that has been good as a pro has been against Indianapolis. I don't know how you weigh situations like that, quite frankly, because
here's how it
works.
Look, with Brandon Cooks being back, all of a sudden you've got you're somewhat of a deep threat back. So what that's going to do is I think that's going to open up a little bit for Hanson. And that's why I know we talked about earlier on, player good players, player not good players. I think Hanson's in the one that's in the spot here. He's going to get those dump down passes that would normally go to a tight end because I think Cooks is going to take away. I think Hanson's actually better with Cooks in the lineup.
It's possible, but QT is the one who's working the middle of the field. Hanson's a bigger guy. He's definitely on the outside.
Right.
No question about it.
I just think that they're going to end up making him more of a relief valve. Maybe I'm wrong.
With Cooks in the game, I don't think that's true. I think with Cooks in the game, it is absolutely going to be QT in the slot working that, and that's literally how he's worked Indianapolis, even on teams that had DeAndre Hopkins on them, like has worked them every time he's played them because he gets matched up against, I don't know, Snoop mentioned, I forget, Kenny Moore maybe, just absolute garbage slot receiver. So,
do you see a scenario then where it's likelier that Hansen gets into the end zone or maybe gets some longer plays?
If you're trying to get me to validate Chad Hansen, it's not going to happen. I ended up with like 40% last week just because he fit a lot of what I was trying to put together with like Hill or Kelsey and Henry. So like doing that, and I was like, I'm not playing Jets. And so I was like, part of me was like, I feel like this is kind of a hedge on playing some of these Jets receivers, is playing a guy like Chad Hansen, who I thought was in like a reasonably good spot. I really like, we can't spend much more time talking about fucking Chad Hansen on this podcast. At this point, we're going to get a bunch of one-star reviews and people are going to be like, they talked for 15 minutes about Chad Hansen. And like the price is coming up. I don't know, like,
mark me down, whatever. Mark me down as a believer. Let's move on.
Hilton. So I think the other battle here comes down to like, do you play Hilton? Do you play Jonathan Taylor? And for me, I'm going to play Hilton because he's $1,700 cheaper at a position where I don't love as many players at. So I'm just going to just dump $5,500 into Ty Hilton.
At what point, though, do you consider the first 10 weeks? First 12 weeks of the season compared to what's happening in front of our eyes?
I have absolutely no idea because I'm fully and completely just running off the narrative that he's killed the Texans when he's played them throughout his career.
Fair enough. The Detroit Lions head to Tennessee. Another 1 o'clock kickoff. Ryan Tannehill will lead the Titans in that one at 6,700. Derrick Henry at 95. A.J. Brown at 76. Davis at 58. Jonnu at 37. On the flip side of the Detroit Lions, Chase Daniel will be 5,000. DeAndre Swift at 64. Jones at 57. Amendola at 42. And Hawkinson at 52. Tennessee's shown some past problems, but what do you think with Chase Daniel under center if that happens?
I really don't know because DeAndre Swift was someone I really liked at first. He was like one of my cash game running backs because I kind of viewed him as being a mini. It was kind of the same mentality we used on Ayuk last week, where he was someone who had an increasing role in the offense, but the price really doesn't match it and the opportunity really doesn't match it. But I'm just nervous. Like, you never know, especially with a backup who's not like a younger backup. This guy's been around the league for quite some time. So like, you don't know if this is the version of the guy that isn't going to be able to get it done. I feel like I have memories of, one of the things that did give me faith was that I feel like I have memories of Chase Daniel and Tariq Cohen on Thanksgiving last year, just absolutely smashing the slate in Chicago. And I don't think, it's definitely not a situation where Swift is the same type of player as Cohen, but it's just one of those things where at least, Chase Daniel was able to utilize a running back that was able to catch passes and get into space and make it work. So I think I'm fine with Swift. I think that, TJ Hawkinson at 5,200 on DraftKings, like the dude just gets 10 points every week. It is what it is. It's what he does. He gets at least 10 points. At 5,300, that's probably not enough. You're going to need him to get to 15-ish, but I don't hate him. On the flip side, man, like this is, if you thought that like play Derrick Henry last week, fuck, dude, this is like prime play Derrick Henry spot because there's been no team that's been more abused by running backs than the Detroit Lions. Like, who did they play last week? Whoever they played last week, I feel like smashed the shit out of them. Was it Indy? I don't know because my computer was Green Bay, and they did not smash the shit out of them because Green Bay refuses to let Aaron Jones be a running back.
Yeah, well, when you got Devontae Adams, he's a running back that can get 20 yards every time he touches the ball.
No, you're definitely not wrong on that one. So, yeah, I think that Derrick Henry is a guy that you're 9,500 is a lot, and he's not a guy who gets work in the passing game.
That's the problem. When you're talking about 9,500 to 10,000 from McCaffrey, that's one thing. When you're talking about it for Derrick Henry, don't get me wrong, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns is possible. But man, without that 6 or 7 catches or without that, it's tough to pay that much.
No, it is, and touchdown variance has been a real bitch, but you have to remember it was a real bitch in the negative in the front half of the season. I could definitely see that normalization take place where he just has 2 touchdowns a week for the next 3 weeks. I mean, like, at some point you just play your matchups in DFS, right? And you do it with talented players, and this is a talented player on a team that wants to run the football. I don't see it being a situation where, like, many times this version of Derrick Henry ends up, fucking us over. But and then outside of that, I mean, you can play Tannehill. I feel like he's been really underwhelming the past several weeks. I feel like a lot of his I guess against Cleveland he was good because he's playing. But like it really, if you look at it, he has been outside of the Cleveland game, he's been completely unplayable like the last 8 weeks. And again, this doesn't profile as being a game where he should have to get work done. So I don't think you're necessarily playing him, but I do really believe what I'm saying in that you want to play one of those 3 Tennessee guys. We're in a really good spot with Tennessee right now where you just know where the production is coming from. You're getting either a big game out of Henry, a big game out of Brown, or a big game out of Davis. So just play at least one of them in every lineup. And if I'm not playing Tannehill, then I am making sure it is just one of them in every lineup.
That's great. I mean, that's really good advice. If you want to stack, you can do some stacking, but you can also just kind of play these guys in different variations of stacks.
It is when you're doing tournaments, right? Like you're hoping for a game to go off. And in order for the game to go off, the quarterback most likely has, unless it's the running back, the quarterback has to go off. And unless it's like an Aaron Rodgers to Adams situation, or there's a price like Tonyan where all he needed was 15 points and it was a smash play, so you could play Rodgers, Tonyan, Adams and have it work and bring it back with whoever the fuck you want to. But like, it's very tough to say, well, you could play Adams or you could play Brown and Davis together without Tannehill, because I just don't see how both of those guys get to the smash point without Tannehill getting to the smash point as well,
Trivia question. Name a Michigan State Spartan that is not currently in the transfer portal. Rocky Lombardi.
Peyton Thorne.
Lombardi is the newest name to enter the portal.
Well, I mean, dude, he lost his job because he wasn't good.
But at what point do you just realize you're not good and then just?
Well, so was Utah. Utah just lost everybody. There's been a couple of schools. Great. Nobody's going to give a fuck on here.
And then somehow Oklahoma gets a guy who's suspended all year back just in time for the title game.
Trayon Bridges. I did see this is misplaced, a couple of misplaced things here, but I did see that he is very unlikely to be heavily involved. Like they've come at like they haven't stated it, but it was on like their message boards with the insiders that he's not. Jaden Hazelwood is the guy that they're really, really, really going to work this week a lot. And then for college football DFS fans, early on in the year, there was no better source of money than Houston Baptist. Seriously. This team, Bailey Zappa quarterback, Jareth Stearns, and Ben Ratzlaff. These guys just literally, all of them would put up 40 points a game, and they were always like 5K or under. Well, they all hit the transfer portal. And the Stearns brothers, or Retzlaff didn't, but the Stearns did. The Stearns are going to Western Kentucky, and there's a lot of belief that Bailey Zapp is going to end up going there as well. And it just get like if it happens, like, dude, I'm super excited because these kids, I'm telling you, they were fucking electric. These kids from Houston Baptist were good, taking on FBS schools and putting 40 burgers on them, man. Their offense was just unreal. So I'm super excited for whatever happens there. We know that 2 of them are already going to be at Western Kentucky. And that was, I mean, I don't know if you remember this. I don't know. You follow college football. I don't know how much you follow it like in depth. But I mean, there was a period from like 2012 to 2016 where Lord have mercy, Western Kentucky was the fantasy team. I mean, Brandon Doughty, then Mike White, who ended up being on the Cowboys for a while, maybe even started a game when somebody got hurt. And then you just had all these receivers, man. Tyler Higbee ended up going there. Mitchell Henry, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, who I think they both actually did play for the Rams. But, oh, my God, dude, this school was one of those, like, we'll score 56 points every week. Our defense is terrible. You'll score 56 points too. And when you saw Western Kentucky on a fucking slate, your dick was just fucking 10 inches if it was regularly 3.
It kind of feels like that's just how college football is now. You don't score 58, you don't win in college football.
It's good. I mean, tomorrow's championship weekend is going to be really interesting. I'm fully expecting at least 4 games to be canceled by the time I wake up in the morning. But yeah, it's been nutty. And dude, I just have to say this. I don't know how much I'm looking forward to the NBA this year. I love the NBA. Our room has already been on fire. Frank's already been in 4 digits. Snoop and I and Kyle have all had, nights where we've all won multiple hundreds of dollars, and none of us are playing like a lot. I'm playing like $25 a slate and returning like 6 tickets and fucking $200. So, I mean, but man, oh my God, like if you thought that NBA late swap was a thing in the past, holy shit, Brian, like it's going to be terrible with COVID this year. I mean, if you can't be in front of your computer for like 6 straight hours, just don't even play. Mm-hmm. There's no, you can't even play.
I'll tell you, you talked about excitement of possibility of Houston Baptist to Western Kentucky. There's a lot of people who are excited about J.K. Dobbins this week as the Baltimore Ravens are at home. It's supposed to be a little bit of wet weather there in Baltimore, which could help the running game a little bit more against Jacksonville. I can't imagine they're going to want to murder Lamar Jackson on the ground here against the Jaguars in a game that should be easily winnable. Lamar comes in at 75, Dobbins at 59. Brown is on the COVID list at 56, so I wouldn't count on that. 43 for Snead, 3,000 for Dez. Boykin also on COVID, so DuVernay is at 32. Mark Andrews at 55. Andrews came alive a little bit in that massive game Monday night, which was simply fantastic. The Jaguars, Gardner comes in at 53. Robinson at 71. Chark at 5. Chenault at 38. Cole at 4. Colin Johnson at 32. Tyler Eifert at 29. Good chalk or bad chalk, J.K. Dobbins, because it's going to be chalk.
It's bad.
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't understand why a running back who touches the ball like 14 times. We just got and look, the pricing isn't any different, or the pricing is massively different. But like, I don't understand why if Derrick Henry gets 25 touches a game and is almost double that price, this guy gets potentially less than half the touches. So you need all of the touches. Literally every touch he has to be a super high quality touch. So
he's going to be dropped. There's no question about it. He's good.
And he's good. Like, it's not even a situation where I don't think he's good. I just think like if he's Mark Ingram from last year, dude, there's just no questions. You know what I mean? Like it's 100% like we're locking him in and moving. But and Ingram's not involved. Ingram has been like ceremoniously been getting the first series.
Did he?
And then after that, yeah, he was the first one out there for the Browns. But I honestly think those were the only snaps he played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were.
And I think there are some definite concerns. Like, he doesn't have all of the red zone work to himself. Gus Edwards is there. I don't think it's all Gus Edwards'. So, and ultimately, I think there's a shot that Lamar's chalk too. We're coming off Lamar having his first like really good week of the season. He's taking on a Jacksonville team that everybody knows is just absolutely terrible. Like, this team is playing for a playoff spot. It has something to push super hard for. So at its base, I just don't disagree with that. But this isn't the fucking BCS. This is the College Football Championship Committee. They don't have, they're nothing. Style points aren't going to matter. And I don't think this is a team that's going to be able to fight against them. Right. So I don't know. I just, if you're fine with getting like a 15-point result out of Dobbins, like, great. I'll have some shots on him, but I'm highly likely to be under the field. I don't know if I'll play any Lamar. I haven't been playing Lamar Jackson all year.
I just don't think they're going to put him under a lot of situations that they did last week in a game that was obviously so close and so important in the division.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the biggest thing that people miss in their analysis of last week is it was like a fucking Big 12 game. You know what I mean? It's literally like an 80, 90 fucking point total. So, like, that's not going to happen. You're highly likely to see this game finish with 50 points. And if that's what it finishes at, even if Baltimore does get to like the late 20s, early 30s, you're still shaving 10 points off of what Lamar got in the process because that's less touchdowns scored, or it's coming off of Dobbins, and whoever it's coming off of makes them a okay play at best. I just feel like this situation is very trappy. Like, again, why are you – and this could also be a game where Lamar throws the ball 15 times. Why do you want to try to find a receiver if he's going to throw 15 times? Unless he has, like, someone who has a 40% target share.
I mean, if Boykins is out, all you've got is Andrews and Snead. I mean,
but we just saw this happen, and he threw the ball 17 times on a showdown slate, and Boykin was the only guy who made it, and it was one catch for a touchdown. And I'm sorry, unless it's a 70-yard touchdown catch, it's not going to be enough.
I mean, I could not agree with you more. And are we going to talk about anything about Jacksonville? Minshew, man.
I mean, I think the defense is getting healthier in Baltimore. If Calais Campbell's out, I think I don't know what happened last game. I thought he was playing, and that really reduced like all of my interest in the Browns. And the Browns, my take going into the showdown slate was like, I'm fading all the running backs, all 4 running backs on the teams. And I was just like, I'm buying all into the passing attack. And if you would have looked at the scoreboard and saw a 90-point total, you'd have been like, holy shit, there's no way that they got there on the ground. But it literally was just all on the ground, except for maybe 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, I don't think, again, like, I still hear people talking about DJ Chark. This is kind of like a McLaurin situation, right? Like, this is the guy who we've seen Chark have this connection with. But, hey, man, like, color me pessimistic based off of how I've seen this offense progress throughout the year. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty much off of everybody here.
The New England Patriots head to Miami, South Florida, 1 o'clock kickoff. Cam Newton will be at 55, just a disaster. Harris questionable at 51, White questionable at 45, Sony Michel at 43, Myers, Bird, Harry all around that 46 to 33 range. Yikes. It's just, I mean, that was their game against the Rams that was just a disaster for New England. Tua, 57. The question comes into the backfield here for Miami. Salvin Ahmed maybe plays, and if he does play, he's at 47. And I have to imagine he will go probably right back to getting most of the carries for Miami. But then you also have to take a look on the flip side at a guy like Lynn Bowden, who's only 3,600, who is going to be in the slot. But the way Bill Belichick's defenses roll are, who are we going to take out of the game? And, when you take a look at Parker questionable, Grant questionable, is Bowden the guy they just kind of focus on and take out of the game? So that's your question there. Gesicki at 48, somehow he's practicing. I have no idea how he's practicing, but he is practicing. If he plays, he's at, again, 48. Any interest in this game? Because I imagine there could be some points scored here.
I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, you're literally, I mean, here we are, and you're saying that they're going to scheme to take Lynn Bowden out of the game because they want to take the best. Like, what kind of shit show are you running? that Lynn Bowden.
Yeah. I mean, play if Grant doesn't play.
I'm literally looking at this game, and I'm like, this game has 10-7 written all over it.
You think so? Because I always think that, and then as soon as
Miami's defense is actually good. I'm not sure Cam Newton is going to have a job in the NFL after this season. I mean, maybe he could be a back, but like, dude, come on. Now you've got like 2 or 3 games where it's just been like as epic of a disaster as it possibly could have. I mean, I know he's not working with much. Like I get it. Like,
you know how they say sometimes when right before somebody who's been sick for a long time kind of feels better right before they go. Was that New England's game against the Chargers?
I really don't know, but I'm just looking at this and again, like I think first of all, I just see Qs and IRs everywhere.
And C19s.
And C19 and I'm just like I saw what Cam Akers did. Savon Ahmed is not Cam Akers. DeAndre Washington is not Cam Akers. And even worse, DeAndre Washington, who was always known for his chops at Texas Tech for catching passes from fucking Patrick Mahomes in the backfield and just, like being so dangerous. The Miami Dolphins, who up to this point looked like a better coached team, decided that Patrick Laird was the better option and that, Washington was not a 3-down back, as it turns out, and Laird needed to be on and that really crippled a lot of his value because even though Laird didn't come up with a lot of fantasy points, like if you're able to put some of that onto Washington, he gets much closer to that 10-point mark. But yeah, this whole game to me, like I can't be interested in these guys. None of this looks like it makes any sense to me.
I just say that I have so much Dolphin in my season long Final Four. I've got to make a decision there in season long. The San Francisco 49ers head to what will be a sunny Dallas, Texas. 1 o'clock, not Dallas, Texas, but we know it's the Dallas Cowboys. It's not Dallas, Texas. The San Francisco 49ers will bring Nick Mullins in at 5,100, and they're talking about New England bringing back the Golden Boy maybe next year. Not Tom Brady, but Jimmy Garoppolo. So we'll see if that's something that comes to fruition, but it wouldn't surprise me. The Niners, Mullins at 51, Mostert at 58, but I think we're all looking at Jeff Wilson Jr. here at 51 is what everyone thinks will be another chalk kind of Dobbins-ish play. Brandon Ayuk at 63, Bourne at 41 is another guy people are talking about, and Jordan Reed at 32. On the other side for Dallas, you've got a questionable let's start with, I guess, Dalton at 54. A questionable Zeke at 61, a Tony Pollard backing him up at 52. Cooper 64, Gallup 35, Lamb at 45. One of those guys that seems to lose some of the snaps in mid and end of game, along with Chase Claypool and Dalton Schultz at 32. The running back situation in San Francisco, it looks like Jeff Wilson Jr. is the guy that most people will be on.
Good for them. I don't know what more I'm supposed to say there.
It's no different than what we're talking about here with all these chalk guys.
Yeah,
we're eat the chalk though, so you got to mention it.
I get it. Like, I don't think I'm touching any running backs here. I get, like, if I'm playing anyone, it's going to be Mostert. I thought he was going to be out. It looks like he's going to be in. I'm actually really thankful for that because that's going to take me off of playing some Jesus Wilson, or is it Jeff Wilson, whatever Wilson is. There's like 14 of them in the NFL that anyway. I think Jesus Wilson was a Florida State receiver a number of years ago with like Kenny Shaw and Kelvin Benjamin. But
did you see that picture of Harden? That picture of Harden that came out with a little bit of a belly as he was getting warmed up. And then people were like, "Who is this guy?" Named the wrong guy, and like 95 answers for Kelvin Benjamin.
Really? It looked like Kendrick Perkins to me. I thought it was like a Kendrick Perkins joke. Kendrick Perkins in a Harden way. Yeah, I mean, we have to have some kind of interest here. I think that goes without saying because
me and you are on opposite sides of what games are going to be high score. I think that New England Miami game will probably have more points. You think it'll have less points? I think this game,
like Dallas has 3 great receivers, and I mean, look, the offensive line is not great, and Dalton is questionable. But like, we didn't even see them really even have to try last week. Like, how about that? Like, they didn't even have to effort against the Bengals. So I think
with the defense for the first time in all year.
Yeah. And so like the Niners are like, okay-ish. I'm trying to. I have to figure out who these guys played last week to get my mind in context. It was Washington. Oh, that's great. So, like, where do we put Dallas's offense in spectrum to Washington's offense? I got to be honest with you. It's probably better. Like, that's sad to say, but like, I'm taking Dallas's offense over anything led by Dwayne Haskins and truthfully anything led by Alex Smith.
Wasn't it last year? Wasn't it last year, or was it this year? I don't know. One of these years, we really liked Haskins quite a bit. Was it the beginning?
I loved Haskins. I loved Haskins coming into this season.
It's been
I've got another year in the system, and maybe they'd figure out how to use his skill set. It's just been he does not. I think his attitude is right, and I think he's matured, but it's quite possible that the talent just isn't there.
Another Ohio State quarterback that can't handle it in the league?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, all of them. Can't wait to see the next one. Anyway, poor Jaguars fans. Yeah, I think that, I don't want to look at any of the running backs here. I just really don't. I think if you have to, you could take shots on Mostert. If you want to take shots, whatever. Do whatever makes you feel better about yourself. I'm super happy that they're not activating Kittle this week because that would have been a very difficult decision about what to have to do with Ayuk. It doesn't matter. Ayuk's going to smash here, and he's going to be chalk again next week and bomb, so it just doesn't matter. So I'm playing him, but like you look at some of these other guys, man, like Cooper totally within play. Michael Gallup definitely within play. You could take shots and see like there's options in this game. I don't hate this game. I think there's definitely some opportunities here for like skinny stacks where you can just 1-1 without the quarterback.
4:00 games are upon us. The New York Jets head west to Los Angeles to take on the Rams in a game that is a spread of about 17.5. It is a game I absolutely hate for fantasy. Just hate it. I'll explain why. Sam Darnold at 48, Gore at 4, Ty Johnson at 42, Crowder questionable at 44, Perriman 37, Mims 35, Herndon 25. On the flip side, the Rams have Jared Goff at 63, Akers at 66, Kupp at 7, Woods at 68, Josh Reynolds at 37, Van Jefferson at 3, Higbee at 38, Everett at 31. If there's one thing the New York Jets can say they've done well this year, it is stop the run.
Right.
There's one thing the Rams have always shown is the Todd Gurley experiment. They can't keep just giving the ball to someone 25 times a game. That is something that I don't see McVay doing over the long haul here. And if it's going to be a team like the Jets that is pretty good against the run, I'm not sure how happy I am or how thrilled I am to pay Cam Akers 66 when it's just as likely Jared Goff could throw a touchdown pass to Higbee. He could throw a touchdown pass to Woods. He could throw a touchdown pass to Kupp. Darrell Henderson could get a sneak.
He could throw a touchdown pass to Josh Reynolds, to Van Jefferson, to possibly, I don't know, Gerald Everett. It's possible he could throw one to Johnny Munt. It's possible they could bring Sean Mannion in and run a package and they threw it to him. It's possible Johnny Hecker. There's all these players.
I'm going over realistic options here, Nicholas, but I'm not playing anyone on the Jets. I'm not doing it. There's just no one on the Jets I'm playing. I don't care, Mims, whatever. Ramsey will just shut that down, and the Rams will shut down the other side. But I don't like Akers this week. I don't. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm ridiculous. I don't like any Rams this week because I can't tell you which one's going to be the one that does anything.
Oh, this is really great because, like, I can just keep saying, fuck this game. Like, every game since we switched the screen, like, I'm just looking at Tampa Bay, Atlanta. Yep. Seattle, Washington. Okay, we said no. Seattle, Chicago, Minnesota. Yep. Houston, Indianapolis. Yep. Detroit, Tennessee. Yep. Those are the first set of games they show you on DraftKings. Mm-hmm. Then we flip the screen and we're at Jacks, Baltimore. Nope. New England, Miami. Nope. San Francisco, Dallas. Maybe. And then we land on this game, and I'm like, I have to see what the Jets pass rush is like. And I thought this before with the Buccaneers too, and it ended up just absolutely going sideways on me where Jared Goff was like an actual NFL quarterback. But look, the weakness in Goff's game. If Goff is under pressure, then he collapses, right? Like that's just what it is. He falls down and he's like a turtle in his shell.
It just depends on when they ask him to hold on to the ball. If he can do that Ben Roethlisberger thing where he's getting rid of it in 2 seconds, he's fine.
Yeah, so if he's able to do that, and who the beneficiaries of that are going to be, it's going to be Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, right? We know that's it's going to push all the production right there. Cam Akers has looked phenomenal for the last 2 weeks. I have a longer sample size of Sean McVay to know that I don't completely trust it.
Exactly.
Still. You know, like I think he'll be somewhat chalky because
big time.
Relatively inexpensive. People haven't got to play him. That works. Sometimes it works in a situation where people are like, well, you know, we haven't really seen this guy. Maybe I'm not paying attention. I don't do showdown, whatever. Other times people are like, fuck, finally I get to play this guy. Let me get him in my lineups. I'm not playing any Jets. Like, no. I will be honest with you. I have a team in a high dollar league. Our quarterback was Cam Newton. And last week we won, not because of any of our offensive players, but because we have the Washington defense, who I picked up like the third week of the season because I was like, I could see these guys are going to be good. And they literally got us into the playoffs. And so the setup we have this week is against the 2 seed. And their team actually is not that great. And we do have the Washington defense, so I expect another 25-point outing from them this week. We had to pick up Mitch Trubisky because obviously Cam Newton wasn't working. We did have Taysom Hill. He's not playing anymore. And we had Carson Wentz, so he's done. So, like, it's been we've really worked our way through. And Zeke was our pick early in the draft. So for us to even be here at this point, listen, I told you the whole story. The rest of our team's Will Fuller. He fucking suspended. Joe Mixon. He's fucking hurt. So we've got like Adam Thielen, Hawkinson, DJ Chark, Landry. So like, dude, I'm telling you, our receiver have been really good. We've been really lucky, but we're here and we're competitive. And I had to pick up Ty Johnson because that's the only possible. Like, I'm sitting here on the waiver wire. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, we've been playing some amount of like DeAndre Washington, Zeke Elliott, who basically provides you about the same that DeAndre Washington does at this point. Chase Edmonds, you know, like all these just second string running back. We finally have a potential, like the Jets have nothing to play for. They have to play this kid. I'm still not playing him for daily fantasy, but I'm just saying I want to because I want to instill hope that he might actually do something. But yeah.
But they also said, you know, Gay said, I want Michael P. Ryan to get into the game and get more carry. And then it was just Frank Gore.
Oh, no, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about P. Ryan. My bad. I meant P. Ryan.
I got you.
Not Ty Johnson, yeah.
P. Ryan's so he's
good. They're not going to activate him after they said they were. Whoops, that's my bad. So now that sucks. So now we're definitely going to lose this week, but
all right. Anyway,
I don't know. Like, you could play guys from this game. I mean, what is you're a Rams fan? Like, does this scream a game that's like they're likely to break something, or just they're going to win?
Gerald Everett. It's like a Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett kind of game.
Like one of those games where one of them goes like 5 and 60 and a touchdown, and that's all you need.
And it screams to me like Darrell Henderson will get 5 or 6 carries, and it'll scream. It screams to me Malcolm Brown will get this. I just don't like. Often with the Rams, you can kind of predict how it's going to go. It's just too much unknown, too many options for me to play any of the Rams, and that includes Cam Akers.
Yeah,
it's just how I feel. But on the other side, we've got a lot of people who are going to be interested in seeing, can I play Jalen Hurts this week at 5,900? Jalen Hurts heads to Arizona, the son of sunny Tempe, Arizona. 4:05 is the kickoff. Miles Sanders is a 69. Rager at 44. Ward at 3. The body of Alshon Jeffrey at 34. Goddard at 39. Ertz at 34. Murray on the flip side, 7,000. Drake at 55. Hopkins at 79. Kirk at 43, who's as Murray's shoulder goes, so does Kirk's ability to make a catch. Fitzgerald at 33, and then Dan Arnold at 35, the touchdown machine, Dan Arnold. This is going to be a quarterback game where you might see 2 guys rush for 100 yards.
Well, I still don't think they're letting Kyler Murray run. He's still not a good fantasy quarterback. Like,
if they're gonna do it, it's got to be this. It's got to happen this week, right?
You would think so. I mean, just honestly, I still think I'm probably off Kyler this week. I don't know. I have to do a little more research. Like, look, Hurts is a running quarterback under 6K. Better defensive matchup than he faced last week, and he got it done. I don't want to put a lot of stock into his performance last week, because honestly, here's what could happen this week. Here's what is likely to happen this week. Okay, you ready? The range of outcomes are Carson Wentz ends up being the starting quarterback by the end of this game. To Jalen Hurts has 40 fantasy points because he's rushed for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns.
There's a great breakdown of Carson Wentz's contract and how it's basically he's there. I mean, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They can't afford to get rid of him.
Yeah. So he's going to be a great backup. I will definitely take some shares in Hurts. I'm really upset that last week he was a guy who I X'd out at the end of things, because I when we were on the podcast, I said I wanted to play only Herbert and Mahomes. And really, both those guys didn't pan out. It wasn't like hyper terrible, but they just didn't get there because nobody did. But I was really sensitive by the time Sunday came, and I was building lineups, and I had like 8 quarterbacks in my player pool. And I was like, see, I got to stay away from this stuff. So I whittled it down to 4. And, Hurts was like my last cut. But I think he would have got me onto more high. And I had a really good week last week. Like it was like a 63% ROI for me. So it was really good. But like, I think that number could have been at 100 if I had played Hurts, because it would have unlocked way more like Henry, Kelsey, Adams, Hill lineups.
And also we saw the return of one Miles Sanders last week. Welcome back to scoring points.
Yeah, I like DFS is at some point, it's in some situations it's a sport you have to like be willing to move quickly in, right? Because whatever you saw last week is going to have double the ownership this week, and if it works again, it's going to have double the ownership next week. So if we keep seeing and waiting what happens with Hurts, by the time we play him, you're not getting a theoretical advantage on the field, right? All you're doing is just matching what they're doing. So I think you have to just, if you think that what you saw last week is real, you have to consider Hurts. You have to consider Miles Sanders. I think Dallas Goedert at 3,900 feels, really, really, really missed price. I mean, you're going back like 5 weeks now, where he's gotten 6 or more targets. That for 3,900. I mean, that's cash game viable. I don't love it. I'd rather play Cole Kmet at 3K just because I think the quarterback is going to look to pass it in that game more than he's going to look to run it. I don't know that you can say the same thing here. How bad do you have to feel for yourself if you're Travis Fulgham when they asked Doug Peterson why Travis Fulgham hasn't been getting more targets, and he says, well, Alshon Jeffrey's been better. I mean, I saw that. It was something. It wasn't that like exact, but it was something super close, and I was like, well, he's dead.
Did you see what Tomlin said about Claypool?
No.
Well, he hasn't hit the wall yet, but we don't want him to.
That does not make any sense.
What does that mean? He hasn't hit the rookie wall yet, but we don't want him to. Okay.
So is he going to hit the sophomore wall? I don't know. Like, is the wall going to go away at the end of this year?
NFL coaches use our advice of just play the best players, for crying out loud.
I don't know. On the flip side of things, I think that, like, let's ask this question. Is DeAndre Hopkins how much of a different, like, from in season-long fantasy, was DeAndre Hopkins drafted where he should be, later than he should be, or sooner than he should have been?
I believe I got Hopkins on the turn in round
3.
Yes.
So I feel like that's relatively fair for what he's produced.
But at the beginning of the year, everyone was breaking down these numbers, saying, "Oh, his production is going to go way down once he gets to Arizona. It's not going to be the same." And I mean, he was dynamite to start the year, but then when Murray got hurt, his numbers have started to go down as well. I think Hopkins now is more of a 10, 12 yards first down guy, and he's becoming pretty much touchdown dependent at this point as well.
The problem is he only has 5 touchdowns, so it's not like they've inflated his value. I'm just curious because I think he was singularly the guy coming into this season that was like there were really two distinct sides on like this was a terrible move and his career is done, and those who were like no, it's going to be okay.
There were a lot more terrible his career is done than there was.
Yeah. I don't think either side can claim victory. If you had to give it to someone, I would actually probably give it to the Undertaker side where he's, sitting up. He did the dead man sit. But I say all that to say, you look at this like, I like Kenyon Drake. I like DeAndre Hall. I mean, I'm just not wild about them. Like Drake feels kind of like, I feel like I like Drake, but it's this. I like Drake, but I talk shit on J.K. Dobbins, and I think that there is like a realistic similar production output. I just think that Drake gets there more often than Dobbins. So I mean, I like these guys, but I don't know. Like, and Drake honestly might be a guy playing cash games, but don't go too heavy on in tournaments. Maybe I do a little more on Hopkins, but maybe I don't. I don't know. He had a good game last week, got over the and we're starting to see the targets pick up a little bit more. I do have a feeling, and it was against 2 relatively good defenses, right? The Rams had double-digit targets. The Giants aren't piss poor terrible, had double-digit targets. So just something to watch. If you've got confidence, I don't think a lot of people are going to be on DeAndre Hopkins this week. So you kind of got some ways to be different there.
And of course, when Nick talks about he's not quite sure yet, by the time Sunday comes around, he's often pretty sure, and that's where the Discord chat comes into play with the DFS headquarters. If you get a chance to check out that Discord, just hit us on a DM, head to DFS headquarters, dfsheadquarters.com. DM us on Twitter. We'll get you into that Discord, no problem whatsoever. America's game of the week. Not going to be showing where I am. I'm going to get Jets Rams, which for me as a Rams fan is great, but I'm not sure I'd rather watch Jets Rams, to be honest with you. But Kansas City, New Orleans, Mahomes, and this is where the real question comes in. We'll get to it in a second. But Mahomes at 79, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 58, Tyreek Hill. Wow, do I love me some Tyreek Hill this week at 8,800. Watkins at 46, Kelsey at 8. Kelsey at 8. Let me read it. Kelsey at 8. Oh, my goodness. Drew Brees is 5,900. Drew Brees is 5,900. No Michael Thomas. Thomas is going to be out. So, Alvin Kamara at 74. Does he all of a sudden become that lock play, that lock cash game play? Nick's shaking his head no. We'll find out in a second. Latavius Murray at 47. Again, Thomas out. So, Sanders at 42, Smith at 32, and Cook at 34. My God, we've talked about chalk all night, but there will be no bigger chalk this week than one Alvin Kamara at $7,400.
Listen, man, I'm sitting here and I was thinking about this and I saw Kamara's price like earlier in the week, 7,400. And I was like, that's an interesting spot. And then my buddy was like, Taysom Hill's in, the kid I co-own the big money team with. Taysom Hill's in. So I was like, whatever. I'm not playing Alvin Kamara. I just don't, I'm not really feeling it. Mm-hmm. And then Drew Brees was announced in, and I was like, I remember seeing that $7,400 price tag. And we know that like Kansas City is totally willing to like let you dink and dunk with your running back, let the running back get a little bit and just really try to stave off those. And it also strikes me as a defense that isn't going to change that based off of who they're facing, right? Like that this is just who we are. This is what we do. This is our ethos. This is what we live and die by. So I was like, man, I really like this play because I don't think anybody's going to be on it. I think that I think people are going to look at Derrick Henry, I think people are going to look right underneath him to that perfectly now priced 7,200 Jonathan Taylor, who's coming off a couple of really big weeks and gets a home run matchup, which you really can't say the same about Kamara. We know that statistically it favors Kamara, but then like the eye test says that like Jonathan Taylor is in a much better matchup because Detroit, Houston just fucking terrible at the run. And then I see Michael Thomas is out, and I'm like, fuck. Because here I am thinking, I'm going to get this like 8 to 10% Alvin Kamara. I'm going to play him in cash. I'm going to put him with Derrick Henry. And like when he scores 35 fantasy points, it's just going to be fucking like rain and blowjobs. And I'm going to be the happiest man in the universe to, oh, cool, now I'm going to play 35% owned Alvin Kamara with everybody else, and I'm not going to not play him because I firmly believe the play is so good that I'm just going to do it, right? This, my friends, is what we call good chalk. This is not a 4K running back.
Do we eat the chalk?
I just said I'm going to play at 35% owned or maybe higher Alvin Kamara, man. Like, but I'm hurt. My heart is severely damaged. I am wounded. It's really frustrating when you think you uncover something that could be like a situational changing play for you, and you know now that you've lost all of that equity, that it's just gone. And now I have to sit here and think to myself, I did it last week. Do I come off Derrick Henry? Is it not play Derrick Henry? And is it go down to, Dalvin Cook, who's a couple $100 cheaper, and that lets me move from this to this. And maybe that's the thing that gets me, maybe I drop from QT, who was the last person in my cash game lineup, to something like Russell Gage, and going down from Cook to, or going down from Henry to Cook gets me to go from Trubisky to Brady, where I feel a lot better, where I feel a lot safer. So I don't know, like, just thinking at it out loud, that's very well an option I may go. I might go no Brady stack, bring back Russell Gage, and then just play, Kmet, play Cook, so you have a little skinny stack there, play Alvin Kamara. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's going to be any room for any Chiefs in this lineup, at least not Hill or Kelsey, just not the way it's going to come together. But I think that on a week-to-week basis, those guys are your like first look cash game plays. It doesn't matter. Like we talked about it on this podcast last week. The Miami Dolphins are a great defense. Like, let's just call it what it is. They're a great defense. And we literally just watched Tyreek Hill whiz bang past them.
Uh-huh.
I don't care who, unless the corner is a fast corner.
Lattimore is not that guy.
Yeah. So like, what's, again, now I have to sit down and really start to think to myself, am I missing out? Again, am I missing out by not playing Tyreek Hill in my cash game lineup? Because evidently, it's not even evidently, as a guarantee, the Chiefs are going to score some touchdowns here. We know this kid might be one of the greatest running backs. We might find out in the next 10 years that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like the best fucking running back in the history of football. No. It ain't happening in 2020. Okay? It's not happening, right? So, like, if you think the Chiefs are going to score, which I think everybody thinks the Chiefs are going to score, you gotta try to figure out what to do to get some of those guys in your lineup. As far as the rest of the plays, like, look, any week that Kamara is a good play, Latavius Murray is a good hedge play, because let's just say, Kamara moves the ball down the field and they get to the 3-yard line and they do that annoying thing where they're like, hey, let's give, Latavius Murray one shot from the 3-yard line to get it in the end zone. And that happens twice in the game and he scores 2 times and has 30 yards on top of that and finishes with 15 points. Then you feel like a real asshole. I think that makes sense. You could look at some of their cheap receivers. Jared Cook, not the worst $3,400 punt option at tight end, coming off back-to-back weeks, scoring a touchdown. But I think that I still think it's smart. I still think it's a plus EV move to try to play one of Hill and Kelsey in your lineups if you can. I still think you can manage to not play them and still survive though.
All right. So if every week we talk about that cash build. For me personally, I've got Tom Brady at top. I've got one Tyreek Hill at wide receiver. I've got Kamara at running back and Cole Kmet at tight end. What are your cash plays this week, Nick?
Yeah, I'm trying to put it together just to make sure that it has enough.
I know mine doesn't, but I'm willing to bet on those three top guys making it up, and then using a guy like Ayuk or one of those cheap.
Well, I mean, Ayuk's not cheap. He's 6,300.
That's true too. He was cheap.
Last week he was, I think, 54. At most, he was 59. I'm trying to see right now. He was 54, so it's a pretty dramatic price jump. Just trying to work my way through this, and I do think I'm going to go. My four, I'm actually going to go
Mitch.
No, but I think I'm not going a quarterback. I like to set my lineups up. When I build out, I don't try to necessarily start at the quarterback position because on a game-to-game basis, you're more likely to see a lot of similar scores in the ranges for quarterbacks, which is why you don't see high ownership on quarterbacks like you do other positions, right? Like a high ownership for a quarterback could be 12% on a week, whereas that is a middling to potentially that's what Travis Kelce was owned last week, but not in cash, just in tournaments. He was 12.8% owned in the $3 tournament on DraftKings. So I never build there first. I always put everything else. And I'm going to use a defense that's 2,200 or under this week, and there's not many of them. And I've legitimately considered the Jaguars. I don't know what I'm going to, it just depends if I need that $100. In all likelihood, it's going to be either the Jets or the Jaguars. But outside of that, I'm looking at Alvin Kamara, 7,400, Brandon Ayuk, 6,300, T.Y. Hilton, 5,500, and Cole Kmet, 3K. I feel like all of those guys are relatively underpriced to the point where their median expectation is probably in line to where they're priced at. Mm-hmm. And it gives me I really feel like the floor is where their ceiling needs to be, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I feel like they're going to come in if they come in on the number to what I think their floor is, that I'm going to be ahead of the field so that anything above that. And if I do that with a cheap defense, I've got $6,400 to spend at each position. So, I can look at a little bit cheaper at wide receiver and get that number up to maybe $7K to spend on the rest of my positions, and then have to just decide what does that mean for my quarterback position, and just kind of go from there. I mean, I think you've hit on something where a guy like Tom Brady makes a lot of sense in cash. I don't think you want to pair him with it. I really don't think you want to pair him with it. I think that's asking for
trouble,
heartache. It really is. But I definitely see him as being a relatively safe 303 with the upside potential for, another 1 or 2 touchdowns and another 50 to 100 yards. So you could be looking at 25 to 34 fantasy points. Pretty good. I don't see that same ceiling for Trubisky. I actually think the range of results are actually better for Trubisky, though. I think he's got a better floor, as crazy as it might sound.
Okay. Final question for you tonight is when you go do those showdown slates this week, which backup quarterback are you going to be starting in a single bullet when there's $500K on the line?
I mean, good Lord. And it was, from what I heard, wasn't that the only lineup this person played?
Single bullet.
I don't even know what to say. At this point, I'm almost like, as a fantasy player, do you honestly have to? Do you have to almost? And look, I'm trying not to be the conspiracy theorist here, but like something like that is so far out of the realm of conscious decision making that you almost want to I almost feel like as a union of players, we need to talk to DraftKings and say, can you please provide us with like logs of changes that were made by this person to this lineup? Because it feels otherworldly that with one lineup, that's what they would land on. And I've oftentimes in my head thought about, like, is it really that? How long before some outside entity or even some inside entity develops some kind of program that allows the user of the program to manipulate lineups while games are going on? You know, like, how long does that take? It sounds crazy, but
not really.
We know that cybercrime is literally a relatively common thing. So what stops something from that taking place? And what better marketplace to try to hit than daily fantasy? Because like, I've got a phobia where I can't look to see how my lineups are doing. So I'm never like scrolling through and seeing like, oh,
I got nothing else going on.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to say about that. But yeah, I think we're closing out. I think this has been excited. I was somewhat frustratingly notified that we're like 60 days to the Daytona 500. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not feeling it. Maybe that's going to change after Christmas. We'll see. We'll see. Last year, I was really psyched. I was really excited. I think part of it might be, Brian, that I don't see the path for how I could have a better year, right? And that's a little bit scary. And it's not like I was constantly winning big, like 50K, 50K, 50. It was 50K, 30K, and then a bunch of like, 4 or 5 to 10Ks. So it wasn't like I had a bunch of those like 50Ks where it's like the number is so big. But I think there is a little bit of subconscious fear there that I'm not going to be able to live up to, like, and then if I don't, it's just going to be a disappointment. So that fuckery is going on in my head right now. But I'm going to start producing some content for NASCAR. I am going to, a month and a half after the season has ended, I'm actually going to write a little bit of a fantasy recap within the next couple of weeks here. That's something I said I wanted to do now that I'm a little bit taking time off work to enjoy the holidays. I want to take some time to really focus on writing about, and then obviously, like, we are just 5 to 6 weeks away from this transitioning from an NFL podcast. And it hasn't been. I mean, we've been doing college football. We want to do some NBA stuff, but we're definitely, the portion that you and I do is definitely start gearing towards heading back into NASCAR season, where we will live for, like 7 months before we're talking football again. So
we'll see. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. He's like, I did this for a year. Drake was with you for a year. I was with you for a year. I'm kind of feeling like I'm ready to be out.
No, sounds good. We're gonna have, like I said, we're gonna try to do some UFC stuff. Even try to get some PGA stuff up. Try to do as much as we can here with the pods. Try to grow a little bit here and get you guys a lot of that information. Kind of previewing everything as we get into the Discord. So you get the preview on the podcast, and then kind of that final situation, our final thoughts there on our Discord app rooms through the DFS headquarters. So Nick, a minute 30 or an hour and 34. And thanks so much. Appreciate it. Another great week from you. Look forward to what you had to say in the Discord room coming up here later this week as we get set for Sunday's kickoffs. Again, there are a couple of Saturday games as well, so enjoy those. We will have breakdowns of those showdowns in the DFS headquarters Discord as well. So dfsheadquarters.com is the website. It gets you all the information you need. We put up some articles for free up there along with this podcast as well. So, Nick, thanks so much. We will see you guys next time for the season-long end of the season at week 16 and one more week of DFS after that, heading out to week 17 before we hit the playoffs. So, Nick, thanks so much. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.